Good morning, lads and ladies. It's 12:09 p.m. But when you're a dad, my morning starts now because from like 6 a.m. I belonged to the tank baby. So I know it's been a few days since my last upload, and especially since my last War Thunder video. My uploads are getting a little less consistent lately, just because of, well, the needs of my family. I've been a little bit more useful, and by the way, we're looking at the MC202, a nice plane with some distinct downsides that we'll get to shortly. And you're looking at one, the guns, not so impressive. I'll be running, once I unlock them, stealth rounds on the 7.7s, which are decent, with 10 mils of penetration and a pretty good velocity. Running AP rounds on that, and we're going to be running tracers for the 50 cals because they're a full API belt. Yeah, armor piercing incendiary tracer, as it were. But the muzzle velocity is much lower on those than the Browning 50 cals that you're used to on an American plane like the P-47 or anything else the Americans fly, especially this tier. But these can do the business even with their low fire rate, and that's what really hampers these guns. Low fire rate on both types of machine gun really reduces your, or I should say, increases your time to kill. But with a lucky pilot snipe, hello chubbies, do you want daddy's attention? Do you want a Cheeto? Do you want a Cheeto? Hold on a second, guys. I give the tank baby a Cheeto. So we were talking about the low kill potential of the MC202. Great airframe to a certain extent, but it faces some very stiff competition at this tier. Chubbies, get that plastic out of your mouth. Come here. I don't even know where you got that. Yeah, I know. Here you go. Here you go. Have a Cheeto. Have a Cheeto. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Sorry, guys. Like I said, dad stuff. But, MC202, the gun's very disappointing. But they can take out enemy aircraft. What you have to do, though, because of the low muzzle velocity on your 50 cals, which is what you're going to get your kills with, is you have to close with enemy planes. Well, that's not usually too much of a problem. I'm actually more used to sniping enemies with the 50s on, say, the P-47 from like 1.5 clicks away. Oh! Well, that's an issue. Yeah, that's another thing I've been dealing with. My internet connection has been rather poor, and at $65 a month, you know, you'd think that I'd get a little bit better internet, but it was the hardware this time. So, we're back in the action, and I've cut straight to the chase. We talked about the disappointing guns of the MC202 and not much else. But we've set up the premise, yeah, Guppy, we've set up the premise that you need to close with your enemy in order to be effective with this plane, and therein, my friend, lieth the rub. Because, as you can see, when you get close to the enemy, they tend to do things like defensive fly or move around at all, and here I have a Spitfire on my tail. So what's the appropriate thing to do when you get a Spitfire on your tail when you're at low altitude and low speed? Die. Yeah, this is when you die. So, as I was saying, and goodbye Spitfire Mark 1. We hardly knew ye, and we knew ye hardly the whole time. Yeah, there goes my wing. Anyway, you have to close with enemies. Did I mention that? You have to close? Did I mention that you have to get close for the guns to work? But the problem is, the MC202 locks up rather harshly once it starts to get in the area of 300 miles per hour, which is, you know, that's an easy dive speed. And by the way, I did get the first hits on that Wellington, but I really didn't mean to take the kill there. I was just trying to pick up an assist, and it's getting harder and harder to get an assist these days. Sometimes they'll even crit and then they die and you get nothing. So anyway, I accidentally stole that kill. Sorry. My bad. So where were we? the MC202, you have to get close. You start to lock up pretty soon, and that lockup really hampers your ability to stay on target. So if you have an MC202 diving on you, and that is what he should be doing, is diving from a higher altitude, all you have to do is turn in the horizontal, and the first thing that happens is as soon as you roll over the MC202, it wobbles. It's a weebly wobbler. It's got a bad case of the weeble wobbles. So because the wings of this plane are actually not the same length, when you roll the plane, more than say 90 degrees over, and you'll see it here, your reticle really starts to jump all over the place, and then you've got your Japanese teammates that are just glued to their tails, so you got to give them some room to maneuver. And your plane just can't roll over and stay on target. So that's an issue. If they turn to the side and then roll over and turn to the other side, you're wobbling all over the place with your gun sight. And because of the nose mount of these guns, you have to get the nose on target. And it has to be right on target because you got low fire rate, low damage output guns. So that's an issue. Add to that the fact that every time you maneuver you're losing energy, and that is your only advantage in this plane against what you're going to face a lot of the time, which is Spitfires and Hurricanes and all of the Russian stuff. You've got an issue. And with middling low altitude performance, and again non-stellar low speed acceleration, against what you're going to face, all of these things really add up to make the MC202 a difficult plane to fly. The strategy is simple, your bog standard energy fighting, but I would take a BF-109 over this plane any day. The F2, just give me the F2. I'll take it any day, because it really comes down to the way you have to fly this plane because of its weak offensive armament just doesn't match up with what enemy planes are going to be doing. Their defensive maneuvers are going to shake you really fast, and you have to either really know where these guns are aiming and be able to take out planes from half a kilometer away or more, or you're going to have to be very strategic about how you line up your shots, because nobody's going to give that kill to you, and it's just difficult to line up the guns on this thing is what I'm trying to say. But there is that occasional moment where your teammate sets up a perfect bait. So awesome, sir. You are a master at baiting the enemy. Well done. Sorry about that. Tank Baby in the background was getting really grumpy. She decided she wanted to take her nap time early, but she definitely didn't want to take a nap. Yeah, I know that doesn't make any sense, but baby logic here. So we had to wrap her up nice and snug and hold her for a while so that she didn't get so upset that she puked all over the place. She didn't do that this time. She's done it before. And we put her down for her nap, so hopefully she'll wake up all nice and happy like she usually does after a good nap. But back to the task at hand. The MC202 has been performing for me like an immature plane. There's some very solid aspects. The airframe of this plane really has a lot of things going for it, and in the game of War Thunder I think it's not quite represented as well as, or as smoothly as it would have handled relative to other planes in real life, because you're not dealing with a lot of the things that an everyday pilot would have to deal with, like rotor torque and things of that nature. But here in the game, the airframe is sort of, it's two-faced, it's dichotomous. There we go. It's a beauty at high altitude, and medium speeds. It's a diver and energy fighter, and I'm sure it can perform well in that role if given the opportunity. But the guns just let it down. It doesn't have enough pasta to properly sauce the enemy. Yeah, bad metaphors aside, here you see the issue. We can neither catch this Yak 1 nor snipe him from range, and he is running straight to his airfield, so he better be out of ammunition because some very cowardly gameplay. And we got a few little hits on him that perhaps in a different plane would have been enough, but not in the MC202. She ain't that kind of girl. So we bugger on off, and that pretty much finishes up the match. Here we get back to our airfield, restocking on spaghettis for the spaghetti launchers. Really, this plane is so close to being a good airplane. It just needs that little bit more maneuverability, especially if it didn't lock up so soon. That would really make a huge difference for this plane in the role that it really performs well. And it needs a little bit more firepower. I wouldn't even mind, a brace of wing-mounted 7.7s. The slander. But those nose-mounted 50s just aren't doing it for me. They have neither the fire rate nor the muzzle velocity to really perform as a heavy machine gun, and they instead they just end up being a liability because you have to rely on them, but well, they're just not reliable. However, against a larger target like this, is that a welly? Is that a welly? You jelly? Getting a jump on him. He was doing something clever, which is to drop altitude and quickly get to the objective, and maybe he bombed a base, but this is going to be the end of the match for him. Honestly, I'd rather be in that Wellington than in this MC202, but that's just me. Now, I mean, not that Wellington, obviously. Because he's not having a good day, and you can see that we're avoiding lingering on his tail, and we did take down his tail gunner and then finish off the airplane. That's a nice way to end that match, but I guess it's not over. I guess it's a good way to start the match. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. It sounds like the baby girl that I just put down for a nice restful nap has decided that naps are neither nice nor restful, and she's not at all interested in continuing to take that nap. Anyway, that was a good match, and that's the best match I had in the MC202. The rest of what you're about to see, well, just it's a mix of me not being able to make this plane perform, and the plane not being powerful enough to perform well for me. Now, I've had some things to say about the MC202, and I guess now's a good time to make my judgment of the aircraft. Now, I've been flying a few aircraft in this game, but I tend to stick to the ones that really do well for me in one particular role, or ones that can sort of be okay in any given role. And the MC202 has neither of those qualities. It is a plane that's sort of middling as a fighter. It's okay, it's not bad, but it's not the best thing in the sky. It's not the best at turning by any means. It's not even close to being the best boom and zoomer, and the guns are really limiting. As for being a multi-role aircraft, not possible. This is not a good interceptor because it doesn't have especially good durability to be able to take a few hits from those defensive gunners. It doesn't get an air spawn, so I mean, right off the bat, that's going to preclude you from being a really effective interceptor, and it just doesn't have the guns. You have to really get lucky or be quite skilled to perform well against heavy targets with this plane. And for the same reason, this is not useful as a ground attacker. It takes a ludicrous amount of time to get those 50s or your 77s, heaven forbid, to take down any kind of ground targets, and you do not have the armor penetration value to punch through even light tanks, let alone medium tanks or the like. So unlike the American 50 cals, these are not anti-tank rounds. You cannot punch through the roof armor of enemy tanks. This is strictly a fighter-on-fighter airframe, and it's mediocre at that. And, you know, that's just been my experience. I'm sure there's people that will absolutely love this plane, because once you get a feel for the guns, they can do the business, and it does have good performance qualities as a boom and zoomer. If you can get over the weebly wobbliness of the gun when you're engaging a target who is defensive flying, and if you can anticipate where they're going to go to line up your airplane appropriately, this plane can perform very consistently. But again, it's a very specialist plane. The only thing this can do well is fly to high altitude, drop down on enemies, and not boom and zoom, rather, well, clearly we've taken down one of the most skilled players on the enemy team. If you guys were paying attention to the background footage, we were being very careful about engaging in that Russian furball, and we'd actually managed to preserve ourselves fairly well. Oh dear, looks like this Italian attacker is not the way to find peace and joy in the game of War Thunder. Clearly we've taken down another of the most skilled players in the game. And with that, I bid you adieu. It's been a pleasure, guys, and I still love making these videos. It's just getting a little bit harder right now to find the time to do so, and that just comes down to being a dad and taking care of some business. I got some wheels put on the wife's car. I gave her an oil change, so the car, not my wife. And so I've just been kind of doing stuff. Anyway, catch you in the next one.